Okay, for this video, we're going to convert between millimeters and inches. If we have, hypothetically, if we have a standard wrench and we have a metric vehicle that we're working on, it has fasteners or bolts or nuts that are metric in size. That doesn't mean that the wrenches won't fit. They won't fit very well, but they could fit over the top of the fastener and still work in some cases. So we're trying to do a little math. So yes, I'm being sneaky here and have you do some math to figure out what size of wrench would fit the metric fastener and vice versa, which metric fastener would fit a standard bolt. So I'm going to go through a few examples to help get you started to answering your questions in your assignment. So let's start with the comparison. How many millimeters will go into an inch? So let's put inches on this side and millimeters on this side of our chart. So we'll just start off with 1. 1 inch is equal to 25.4 millimeters. So it'll take 25.4 of these millimeter units. They're about the thickness of a dime. If you're looking for something that you can do kind of a quick comparison in your mind's eye. So the thickness of about a dime, it takes 25.4 of those to make up an inch of distance. Okay? Now I want to also, since this is kind of our toolkit here, I'm going to put in the other conversion, and that is how much is 1 millimeter. So how could we figure that out? We could take, let's see, we could take, if we take an inch and we break it up into 25.4 parts, this is an inch across here, exploded view obviously of an inch, and we break it up into 25.4 parts, how much would one of these be? How wide would one of those be? So let's just do that. Take 1 inch, use your calculator to divide it up, and divide 1 by 25.4. So I'll just type it in 1 divided by 25.4 and see what you get. And I've been doing this unit for a few years, so I know that you're going to come up with something in the 0.03937 range. Now that would be inches. So I'm going to put the two little hash marks here. 1 hash mark is a foot. 2 tick marks, they call it, is a inch. So let's move this number, since this is going to be 125.4 of an inch, 3937. If you wanted to round that up to 0.040, that's okay. And then we'll just leave it at 3 decimal positions. So it's kind of, whatever you like to do is fine. The answers are going to be close enough that that's going to be acceptable. Okay, so with that being said, now we kind of have our toolkit that we can use, and I will round this to 40 just to keep it simpler. Round it up to 40. Okay. So let's take a bolt. Let's say we have a 8 millimeter bolt. What does it equal in inches? Standard wrenches, by the way, are going to be fractions of an inch because they're going to be smaller than 1 inch, so they're going to have to be a fraction. So the fractions you're going to find are going to be 1 inch. You're going to have ½ inch. You're going to be half of that's going to be in quarters and eighths and actually 16ths. So your standard wrenches will go into 1/16 of inches. It could be a 9/16 wrench or a 7/16 or a 5/16. So on your answer, I'd like you to get to the nearest 1/16 of an inch. Would be fine. Okay, so 8 millimeters, what does it equal in a standard wrench? So metric standard wrenches are your inches. So how would I know? Well, how many inches are there in a millimeter? If we look back over here, we just discovered earlier that we know that for 1 millimeter we have about 40 thousandths, 0.040 inches. So if I take and multiply that times my 8, that's going to come out to approximately 32. 8 times 4 is going to give us 32. So that would be equal to 0.320, so 320 thousandths. So I've still left you with a problem. This is not, our wrench is not going to be measured in decimal. It's going to be measured in fractions. So how do we convert to wrench size? We're going to measure this into what I said 1/16 is how accurate we're trying to get on our wrench size, and then we'll round up or down because these numbers will not be an exact match with the standard wrenches. That's why a standard wrench is always a little loose, usually. Some are closer than others, but it's a little bit loose on there, but we're just getting in the ballparks, you know, what wrench to reach for to see if it will work sufficiently enough to get the bolt loose. So if I'm trying to measure this in 1/16, times it by the fraction you're trying to convert it to, the denominator. So I took millimeters, multiplied it times how many inches there are, or parts of an inch in each millimeter. That got me to the 320. Now I'm going to see how many 1/16 would this make. So I multiply it times 16, and that's going to give us, I'm just going to do this longhand just like you would, because I don't have this. So 6, 0, 12, carry the 1 up there, so 6 times 3 is 18, 19, and 320 would go times 1, so I'm just going to put it in here. Let's tally this up. 2, 11, 3 plus 2 is 5. Now the decimal is over 3 places. 1, 2, 3. So I've got to move it out here and put it in its place. So this is going to give me 5.12 16ths. Now I won't have a 5.12 16ths wrench, so I know that if I rounded it down to 5/16 to make it a clean number, 8 millimeters is a little bigger than that. So what's my next size of wrench? Well, it would be a 6/16. Remember that teachers are always telling you in math, reduce the fraction to its lowest common denominator, So 6 and 16, those are both even. So we know we could cut them in half, which let's do that. Let's convert that to 5/16 here. We're just going to move everything down so we can see it. 3/8. So 6/16 is equal to 3/8. All right. So this is going to be a little bit smaller than the 8 millimeters because it's not 5/16, it's 5.12. So we said, well, we can only go with 5/16 wrench. If we went up to the next size wrench, it's going to be a 6/16, which then equals a 3/8. So an 8 millimeter, it would take a 3/8 wrench take a 3/8 inch wrench to fit over an 8mm bolt head. Okay, so that's what I'm asking you to do on those questions. Let's flip this around. I'm going to erase this, and we're going to go the other way because I'm asking you to also start with the inch and move towards metric. So let's say in this case we have a, let's say a 5/8 inch, a 5/8 inch bolt. What size of metric wrench would fit over it? Let's kind of do what we did here, but only in reverse. We ended up with our fraction, and then we went to a decimal, and then we came up with the millimeters. We went this way to go from metric to standard. Now we're going to go from standard to metric. So I'm just going to reverse this process. Here I have a clean fraction. A 5/8 is going to be what the wrench size is. And I want to convert that to a decimal. So go with the inches fraction that I'm giving you in the problem. Change it to a decimal in inches. And then we're going to convert it to millimeters for our answer. So what is 5/8 as a decimal? Start with the 5 divided by the 8. And that should give us about, I'll have to check my math on this, I think it's 625 point. So take the 5 divided by 8. We have to add the 0 because the 8 won't go into it. So 8 goes into 50 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. 2 left over. Let's add a 0 here for this placement. And 8 goes into 22 times to give us 16. So we are making progress, and now we're at 40. Because we keep bringing zeros down. And 5 times 8 would equal 40. 5 times 8 equals 40, and so it comes out perfect. So 0.625 was correct. Now I can multiply, how many millimeters does an inch make? And I've erased my help up here that if you look back at that part of the video, we had 1 inch equals 25.4 millimeters. There are 25.4 millimeters in every inch. So if I have less than an inch, it's okay. Multiply it times the same 25.4 to see how many of those 25.4 units you have. I have 0.625, so I'm going to take that number, 0.625 times 25.4, and that's going to be very messy. And I don't have the answer off the top of my head, so I'm kind of at the mercy of this video right here. Let's do it longhand. So there's 20, 8, there's a 10, 24, 6 times 4 is 24, and 25. So let's go there. 5 times 5 is 25. And cross those out so I don't get confused. So 5 times 5 is 25, 2 goes there, 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 2 gives us 12. So 10, carry the 1, so 5 times 6 is 30, 31. Now 2 times 625, let's go 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1, 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 is a 5 here, and 2 times 6 is 12. So that gets us, so bring everything down. So let's go 0, 5, 5 plus 2 is 7, 6 plus 2 is 8, 3 plus 2 is 5, and a 1. And we're going to have 1 decimal place, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to bring this over 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what that gives me is 15. I'm going to get rid of some of these. 15.8 millimeters or in this case, we wouldn't have a 15.8 millimeter wrench, would we? We would round that up to 16 millimeter wrench. So metric's a little easier to round it up to because you don't have to worry about the fractions. But that's how we get rid of those. And that's how you go from a standard size of bolt to the metric wrench that would fit over it. It's a little challenging. It's more of some math exercise for you. After a while, you learn that like an 11/16 is about equal to a 17 millimeter just from use, but we're not there yet, and a little math never hurt. So hopefully that'll help with those examples in the assignment for you. Good luck.